Hello, my friend, and welcome to Fear into Faith, Miracles, Signs, and Wonders. I'm your host, Summer Day, and with me today is our studio audience! Oh, hang on for the ride, because we got a cowboy in the studio with us, and his miracle story is about how when he was a firefighter, he was in an actual burning home, and he fell through and walked out of the hospital in the same day. Woo! Welcome to the stage, Todd Sanford.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Great to be here.
It's always good to have a cowboy in the house.
Hey, well, I was a fireman, now I'm a cowboy, and who knows what I'll be next week. I like to spice things up, you know.
Yes, you do. I was going to say, tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you doing in your life?
Well, it is crazy as ever, and we'll get into the story later, but I was a 29-year firefighter, and when I retired, I took over my wife's family ranch. I've been running a 2,600-acre ranch by myself for the last 4 years.
So you don't just wear the hat and boots. You're like the real deal cowboy.
No, we raise Black Angus cattle and white Dorper sheep, and we have about 500-plus animals on the ranch, 3 horses, so... Yeah, we're the real deal.
Okay, so I have a really important question then.
Okay.
How come you haven't invited me to your ranch yet?
You're too busy. You're constantly on TV or just doing something. So
I want to come. I want to bring my girls. They would love it.
They would. Hey, we are working on fixing our ranch house where we can start inviting people out, hang out with us, and give them the real West Texas. I
love that.
You know.
I love that. When was this transition from firefighter to rancher?
Well, it was actually in 2019 when I retired, and right at the very end of 2019, and then
wow, so before COVID.
Right before COVID,
so
I got out just in time.
God was doing a repositioning. Yeah. Oh my goodness!
And so my brother-in-law had brain cancer, and he was the one running the ranch after my father-in-law had passed away, and he passed away, and so. My father-in-law had always told me as a rancher, he says, you never buy land that has been leased by somebody else and then you buy it, because that person that's leasing that land is going to be upset, and they're going to put every animal on there, and it's going to be as hard as this concrete floor, and it's going to take at least 3 years for you to be able to put livestock on it. So when my brother-in-law passed away, the family was talking about putting it up for lease, and I wasn't going to let anybody ruin our land. So I'd always wanted to, I've always been a rancher. I've always leased places. I've always had it. So we took over the family ranch, and that's what we've been doing. But, you know, there's always that but in a story. Man, I was going out there, and never have I been happier, because I am truly a cowboy. That's what I love. You know, my cows would come up, eat out of my hand. My sheep follow me to the pens. And, I mean, I just love what I'm doing. But every day I went out there, I was saying, God's got something bigger for you than to be a rancher. You're ranching for yourself, and God's got something bigger for you to be. Yeah. And when we get into the story, you'll find out that God saved me. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's obviously He had a bigger plan for me. And so when you're going out there day after day, you're doing something great for your family, and you're keeping the ranch alive, and you're keeping that history there. But when you know you're called to do something else, you got to do it.
You got to answer the call.
That's right.
Or God's going to call someone else.
That's right. And so
let me ask you really quick. You're married?
Yes.
Yeah. Kids?
I've got 3 adult kids. I've got a 29-year-old that lives here in Dallas. He's a banker. I was
going to ask where you're from.
Yeah.
Where you're from. And
so he's in banking here in Dallas. I've got a 25-year-old, just had a birthday yesterday. And he is a nurse in Lubbock, Texas, but he's moving home to San Angelo so he can help me with the ranch.
Oh,
so we're so excited about that.
And does he have kids?
He does not.
He does not,
but when he moves home, they're going to start. So we're real excited about that. So both of my boys are married to 2 amazing daughter-in-laws. And at both of the weddings, I told them both, you come into this family, I don't say the in-law, you're my daughter. And so
I love that.
I love those girls like they are my daughter. But I do have a 19-year-old daughter that is going to school over here at Fort Worth at TCU. She's going to school to be a nurse, and she is, of course, my baby girl. So
I love it. I love it. You're a man of strong family values. I might have to steal that when my girls get married.
I mean, it truly is, because
Yeah.
if you knew where I came from an alcoholic family. My mother was amazing. I mean, she was the glue that held the family together for so many years. And my dad loved me, and I love my dad, but he was a very, very bad alcoholic, and it was not a fun way to grow up.
Yeah.
And it was, especially for me, I had two older sisters, and they were 9 and 7 years older than me. So by the time they got out of the house, he wasn't that bad when they were in the house. But by the time they left, he had really become a bad alcoholic. And so you didn't get a lot of sleep in my house, and it was just it was a rough way to grow up. And I know there's a lot of people out there that it's had a harder time, because I had a mother to protect me, and thank God she did. And me and her just, we're so close, and me and you've talked about that. I bought her a house. She's moved in next door to me, and so we kind of take care of each other.
Mom's gonna be next door. Your son's gonna be there.
Yeah, it's a good thing. And family, because of the way I was raised, family has always been number one for me. And so,
Amazing.
and that goes into what I'm doing now. I'm a coach. I'm a man's coach. I think today's society tells men that they're not supposed to be strong.
Oh,
and I'm so sick of that.
Preach.
I'm sick of it.
Preach.
And men have to be strong.
Yeah.
And I say in my coaching program, you have to be a man of God. You've got to be strong, and you've got to take care of your family. But that doesn't mean you put your wife down. That doesn't mean you put a hand over your kids or your wife. That means you put them in your hands, and then you lift them above you.
Come on, yeah.
And so that's just what I believe. I believe and I think, you can look at the prisons. 80% of the men in prison didn't have a father figure.
Yeah.
You can look at all the issues with divorce and stuff, and the majority of those are men that don't know how to love their wives or their kids.
They don't know how to love themselves to start.
Exactly.
Yep, 100%.
And I'll tell you, man, I can sit up here and preach, but the fingers are all pointing back at me. I felt like I was a pretty good dad. I haven't always been a great husband. I believe in talking to people. I don't care if it's a coach, a psychologist, a counselor, whatever. And I have my own, and she's told me, says, well, I like to yell a lot. And I don't like to yell, I just yell a lot. But, she said, man, you're a fireman for 30 years. At fires, you yell at your men.
Yeah,
you
of
have to
course.
get their attention.
Of course,
Because if you don't, they're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And then my dad yelled a lot, so that's just kind of normal for me.
It was your programming, yeah.
But
for sure.
I've got two daughter-in-laws that come into this house, and we're working cattle, and I'm yelling pretty loud. And my daughter-in-laws don't like that. So I have really worked on that part of my life. And that's why I love coaching men, because they're always asking me, what gives you the credibility to coach? Well, I've screwed up all my life. So I'm trying to help men not screw up. And I've been married for over 30 years. I told you before, me and my wife were 6 years old. We had two older sisters. They drove to the drive-in movie theater 20 miles away. They went and chased boys, threw us in the back seat. And I've been with my wife since we were 6 years old.
Oh, okay. That's so awesome. I got to pause you there, though. We're going to pause right there. Isn't that the cutest thing ever? We're going to be back right after this. Hello, my friend. We're back. Oh, that was so adorable. Todd was talking about how the two girls put you there at the drive-in movie, and you had your first date, you would say, at 6 years old with your wife.
Yep, it was cold, and she had a Raggedy Ann and Andy blanket, and she says that I've been trying to make a move on her ever since we were 6. I was freezing to death. I was trying to get under the blanket and warm up, but but a wonderful. I mean, my wife's the most amazing person, and that gives me credibility to speak as a man to men, because my wife has stuck by me when I've almost been killed, when I get down in my, just being a man, just the stress of trying to provide for a family and everything. She's always been there to lift me up, been my biggest supporter, her and my mother. And so I love, this sounds crazy, but I love women. I think women are the strongest people in society. They will sit there and, a man, he wants to go around and tell you that he's the leader. But the women are the backbone. They're the ones that cook and clean and do the dishes. And me and my wife fight a lot because men are, our love language is usually touch. And we want to be held and we want to know that we're loved. And women, they want to know that they're secure and they're safe.
Yeah.
And we can do that, but sometimes women can't give you the, that loving feeling that you need as a man.
Yeah.
And so because of the way my wife has treated me, stuck by me, talked to me, I'm able to tell men now what women are thinking to a certain extent. And being raised by a mother and 2 older sisters, that also gives me that credibility. So I love it that I'm able to help people and,
I'm telling you, I heard it put this way, is somebody who has had an experience is always better than someone with a theory. I feel like men should rather coach with somebody like you who's lived it. I'm coaching from my experience, and this is what I lived, and this is what I figured out that's working for me, than somebody that went to psychology and they got their master's in the things, but they haven't lived through it. I think that's great. I think we need more coaches like you that are going to help.
It's like being a fire chief or a fire chief. Those guys that just come up through the ranks, boom, 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 that never really fought fire, never spent time down in the grudge and the fires. Man, they're terrible because they don't know what the people that are underneath them are really doing.
Yeah.
And that's why I love being an assistant fire chief, the number 2 fire chief in charge of 175 personnel, because I'd been there. I'd been there right up until my accident.
Yeah.
And so I knew what they were going through. And my job as chief, just like my job as a husband and a father, is to provide support so everybody else can flourish.
Yeah,
and
amen.
So,
amen. I love that. I love that. All right. We don't want to run out of time, and you and I can literally talk all day because we're old hat at this.
Yeah.
We've done this before.
Done it before.
You're on our Bible TV show, which is awesome. Every time I get to hang out with you, you just fascinate me. You're such an awesome, fun guy, and I love that you give me all kinds of sass. You remind me of one of my 6 brothers. Let's get into...
She can give it back, folks. just saying. So
I feel like in the realm of women, I'm like top dog and being able to give it back, but that's credited to my 6 brothers.
You do good. You do good.
Okay, let's talk about your miracle story. Firefighter for 29 years. You hear a lot about people in the medical profession or stuff like that. In fact, I have a client, she tells us about how there's so many things we don't know that they go through. Being in that profession, seeing people actually die and all of those things, I've never really thought about that before. And I'm thinking for firefighters, you probably haven't always had things perfect. There's probably been some really scary situations. I don't know if you've had a firefighter that didn't make it through a fire or anything like that. I feel like that's one of those jobs you don't think about the high emotional demand. So I could see why you were coming home and yelling, also being in that more of a heightened emotional, anxiety, blood pumping state of what you did for a living.
Yeah. Well, what people don't understand about firemen and policemen, especially firemen and paramedics, and if you were in my department, you were a fireman and a paramedic. So we rode ambulances and fire trucks.
Wow.
But what they don't understand, and what my problem was, when I would get home and my wife would have an issue, say the dishwasher had broke or something like that, and she was so upset and rightfully so, anybody would. But when you've worked a 24-hour shift and you've held a dead baby in your arm, and then you have to go home, the dishwasher really doesn't matter to you.
Yeah, of course.
And you can't just turn it off when you drive home. And you'll hear guys, they go, I leave work at work. Bull crap.
No.
I've got 35 years, because I was a volunteer for 6 before I became a professional. I've got 35 years of death. And other than somebody in our military that I have the utmost respect for, firemen and policemen and paramedics, we see the worst of the worst.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't even start telling you what my eyes have seen that nobody should have to see.
Yeah.
Car wrecks. I mean, we're talking bad things.
Yeah.
And then you talk about what people do to other people. And that was some of the stuff that hit me hardest was I couldn't ever imagine what a human being could do to another person. I can't fathom that mindset, that evilness. And so you come home and just, I've been driving home, been to a car wreck where 2 children were thrown out and killed.
Oh.
And driving home the next morning, you see a kid in the car next door, not in a car seat. I literally came out of my truck window and I'm like, I lost it because I'm sitting there going, love your kid more, put them in a car seat. What are you thinking? And it was all because of what I just saw.
Wow. So. I feel like God, 36 years of that, God has given you a sensitivity. I mean, it's horrible to ever have to do any of that. So thank you. Thank you that you went through that. And I can see God really using that sensitivity with coaching men and all of those things, not just because you've learned to be a good husband and a good father, but also having to experience that much has to give you a deep level of sensitivity for humanity.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't, I was that officer. I was the officer the majority of my career. But I was that guy that if we got there and say your husband's 55 years old and died of a heart attack, I'd sit there and hold that lady's hand or hold her until a family member or somebody close got there to her. And some of my guys would go, come on, let's go. And I let them know. This is the most, because what you got to realize is you're a fireman or a policeman, when somebody dials 911, that is their worst day of their life.
Yeah.
Now, even if you get there and it's something that's not really that serious, and we had a lot of those runs.
Sure, of course.
It was bad enough for them to call.
Yeah.
And I think you had a guest on here, and he was talking about that contact with individuals and that, how you need, and sometimes people would dial 911 just because they needed somebody to talk to.
Wow.
And when you're a fireman and you're making 20 calls a day, that's not easy to put up with. You're like, just sign this piece of paper, we're leaving. But I really tried to be empathetic and put myself in their shoes and really look at, they are hurting, even though there wasn't anything medical wrong with them. They just needed somebody to talk to. And that's, you said thank you, and I get thanks a lot for my service, but no, it was a blessing for me to help give back to others. That was just wonderful for me.
So good. We're going to pause right there, and then we are going to tell your story, right?
All right.
We'll be back right after this. I was just telling Todd that I don't even remember where we were because we've been talking it up, but I do know we're supposed to tell your story from the book. So let's get to the story from the book and the miracle that happened, and we only have one section to do it in, so talk
fast.
Let's
I
go.
got it. All
talk
right.
fast, cowboy.
So, just had the 8-year reunion of this accident. So it is the Sunday morning or Sunday night, Monday morning, right before Thanksgiving, 2015. So November 25th, 2015. We get called to structure fire. There's a lot of stuff behind it, but bottom line is usually captains don't go up in the attic. But this was the second time we had been at this fire, and I was really upset with my crews because you never go back to a fire. You make sure that fire's put out, and I ordered crews to make sure it was out, and we went back about 8 hours later. So it was what we call a rekindle. And so I'm very upset because me being the captain, I'm in charge of making sure it's out. So anyway, move forward. I crawl up in the attic because I'm going to make sure that this fire's out in the attic this time. So I'm moving along, and the next thing you know is you hear a crack, and I fall 9 feet, and I land flat on top of my head, straight down.
No.
My feet catch the wall, and so it made it worse because it slammed me, and it made me like they called me the lawn dart for a long time. So if you ever saw one of those big darts and it just goes straight in, that's what happened to me. But when I hit the ground, I was completely paralyzed. I could not breathe, but I was wide awake. And I knew what had happened. I knew what was going on, and I knew I had about 2 minutes to live. And all I could think about was hugging my kids and my wife. And I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, but nothing's coming out because I have spinal damage and I can't even breathe. So nothing's coming out. I'm still in my gear, I'm in my mask. And so finally one of the guys, and it seemed like forever, and it was probably only 15 seconds, you know, I don't know. It couldn't have been very long, but it just seemed like forever. And finally, one of the guys reached down, grabbed my head, moved me just enough to take enough pressure off my spinal cord where I could breathe. I took a big breath, and then I started screaming, I got a spinal injury, I've got a spinal injury. So they started trying to package me, and they wanted to get me out. I mean, we're in a burning building, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there. I've got a head injury. I've got a broken neck. I've got 7 other vertebrae in my back broken. And all I'm saying is, don't move me. Go get my wife and kids and bring them here so I can hug them, because I know I'm going to die. I know that once they move me, my spinal cord's going to snap, and I'm never going to be able to hug them again. And they're going, Captain, it's a burning building. We got to get you out of here. I go, no, I got to. And I'm arguing with them because they're wanting to take my air pack off. And I know as soon as they move my air pack, I'm going to be paralyzed. And so, long story short, they get me packaged. They get me to the hospital. They do an MRI. And the doctor comes in and he goes, we got to go to surgery right now. He goes, I don't know that you're going to make it. And if we do, you're probably going to be paralyzed from your neck down. So we go to surgery. I'm here today. So that tells you the outcome of the surgery. But what's happened since then is we've had a total of 5 surgeons look at my MRI and X-ray. All 5 of them have told me there's absolutely no reason I lived through that fall. If you look at the MRI, my spinal cord is literally off like that. It is a 90. And everybody that's looked at it says, they've never, I mean, these are guys that deal with this day in and day out, and they go, we've never seen a spine that didn't snap when it was that out of place. When a broken neck, I mean, my neck was broke completely in 2. And thank God I hit on my head. I'm the hardest, head person you ever know, or my head would have broke too.
For sure.
So, weak spine, hard head. So I came out of that, and man, I tell you, you said I walked out that day. I didn't walk out that day. I walked out about 6 days later. Okay. Well, actually, that was Sunday, and I walked out Thursday. I walked out Thanksgiving
Day.
Yes.
Wow.
And so it was just the 8-year anniversary of that accident right before Thanksgiving. And I get very emotional this time of year because I still get to see my kids. I still hug my kids. I get to have Christmas with them. And I don't think unless you've actually should be dead or been through something like that, I just don't know that you can actually have that feeling, that deep a feeling of what that love is and what it means just to hug somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm in pain every day. I mean, I broke my neck. I broke 7 other vertebrae. They didn't fix anything else besides my neck. I mean, because all they wanted to do was save my life.
Wow.
And so it took 6 months to recover. I was blessed to recover. I went into the training office. I couldn't fight fire anymore, so I became the training captain. I put together some of the best curriculum, best training in the world because I never wanted to lose a fireman. We didn't have any training at that time, so we trained our guys. Then I was blessed to make fire chief. I had 175 men that worked for me and 1 woman. And they would come into my office, and I had a whole new respect for what they did and who they were. And I had an open door policy for the first time ever in our department. And they'd come in and they talked to me about being, having problems with their marriage, having problems with their kids, and all the difficulties that people deal with. And that's what I felt like God saved me. And that's the start of what now we've turned into a coaching business because we know that's what God called us to do.
Yeah. Do you have a website, or how do people get a hold of you?
I do. I have sanfordcoaching.com, or you can go to my Facebook page at Todd Sanford, or Todd Sanford Coaching's my Instagram. Mainly my Facebook and my website.
Nice.
Are the 2 places that you can catch me.
I want to ask, what's your wife's perspective on this? What was that like for her? On the day of your accident?
I think she was in such shock. I'd had close calls before.
Yeah.
This wasn't the first time that the fireman went and got my wife and brought her to the hospital.
Oh, okay.
But this was the closest. And I think we had lost my brother-in-law earlier, about a year earlier to suicide, and that devastated our family. And I was the only male left to really hold the fort down. And I think my wife, I think she always knew that I was going to be all right. We had almost 1 million people praying for me.
Wow.
Between all the chaplains.
Oh my gosh.
My chaplain sent it out to all the chaplains in the fire service.
Yeah.
And even my assistant fire chief at the time walked down. He had been at a conference. He walked downstairs, and everybody at the conference was saying, "Hey, how's your guy? How's your guy?"
Wow.
He goes, "What are you talking about?" He didn't even know because he wasn't checking his phone.
Oh my
He didn't even
goodness.
know that one of his guys had got hurt and was in the operating room.
Wow.
And so it was spread all over the place. I had people from New York, and what was so bad for me, or maybe it was good because I was in so much pain, I don't remember about 2 or 3 months after the accident because I had such bad brain damage from the fall, and nobody knew it. Because I was talking my normal self. I'm just going and blowing.
Wow.
And then, you know, now after 3 months or after 8 years, people go, "Well, what about this?" I go,
And you don't
"I don't remember anything.
Wow.
I don't remember who came to see me. I literally don't remember. The last thing I remember is them wheeling me to the operating room. And my little girl was in junior high at the time, or elementary, and she was crying.
Wow.
And I used to
Wow.
help her with her history homework. And I said, "Baby, don't worry, Daddy's going to be okay because nobody else can help you with your homework."
Wow.
And that's the last thing I remember.
Well, I got to wrap you up here.
All
We
right.
got a minute here to close us out. I love it. I didn't know the doctor's part. So 5 different doctors
Yeah.
are looking at this, all saying this has to be miraculous.
Yeah.
There's no
No medical reason. They
medical
called me
reason.
the walking miracle at the hospital.
I love it. I love it. I love it. The walking miracle. So good. So good. Thank you so much again for your
thank you.
service. Thank you for your heart. I love everything that you're doing for Ben, and I feel like, you know, for families, for marriages, for all the different things. So thanks
Thanks for
being
having
here.
me. I've loved
You're
it.
fun.
Love it.
I'd like to have you anytime.
Well, anytime I'll drive 4 hours just to come see you because that's what I did this morning, just to come be here.
Well, thank you, original cowboy, Todd Sanford. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching. And I just pray, my friend, that you get inspired by this, that there is a God out there, and he is alive, and he is real, and prayer works. 1 million people were praying for this man. 5 doctors can't explain. Call him in the walking miracle. Miracles are for today, not just for biblical times, but for today, my friend. I pray this blesses you, and I'll see you next time.